Hi everyone, I'm Aaron Patterson, and I want to thank you for joining me today for this discussion on high intensity interval training. Now, there are a lot of different reasons to include high intensity interval training into your workouts, or HIIT as you might have heard it called before. And today I'm going to discuss what exactly high intensity interval training is, why it's good to include it in your programming, what some cautions might be to take into consideration, as well as the overall benefits of high intensity interval training. So as I get into this, I want you to ask yourself, what is the first thing you think of when you hear HIIT, or high intensity interval training? HIIT has become a buzzword of sorts in the training and fitness industry, and because of that, it's sometimes taken out of context. Some programs might advertise HIIT workouts and then put their clients through a seemingly endless circuit of exercises just for the sake of making them sweat and increase their heart rate with no real direction in mind. Don't get me wrong, you should definitely sweat and increase your heart rate during a HIIT workout. And what you're experiencing in those workouts is probably a really good conditioning session. But there's a clear difference between continuous, lengthy workouts and HIIT. You've probably seen it yourself and maybe attended one of those classes. I've seen it. What you expect to be some sort of interval training turns into maybe a 30-minute non-stop cardio session. No rest or minimal rest breaks, head down, keep your heart rate at 90% the entire time. As I'll explain in a little bit, the intensity that needs to be met in order to consider a workout high intensity wouldn't be able to be sustained for a long period of time. In fact, it's generally unlikely to be able to maintain that intensity for more than a couple minutes maximum. So what is HIIT? The National Strength and Conditioning Association's Essentials of Personal Training says that interval training can involve short periods of exercise at intensities at or above the lactate threshold and VO2 max, alternated with longer periods of lesser intensities. It goes on to say that interval training can also involve high intensity exercise with periods of rest between. So you will have a short burst or a period of really intense exercise and then follow it up with either active recovery or a full rest break. Looking at a different source, the Harvard School of Public Health defines high intensity interval training as a type of interval training that incorporates several rounds that alternate between several minutes of high intensity movements to significantly increase the heart rate to at least 80% of one's max heart rate, followed by short periods of low intensity movement. This is compared to moderate intensity continuous training, or MICT, which incorporates lower intensity movements at a constant pace without interval breaks. Now, this is what I alluded to at the beginning in what some people confuse a continuous conditioning session as a HIIT session. With the intensity required to be considered high intensity, it would be difficult for anyone to keep the intensity high for a long duration. This is because at some point, the body will no longer be able to manage the high degree of physical stress. Just like a person might have mental or psychological stress, exercise is a physical stress that challenges the body to work harder than it's accustomed to. This creates adaptations such as large muscle fibers capable of generating more force and a stronger heart capable of moving more blood per contraction. So right off the bat, we know that physical stress in this sense, including high intensity interval training, can help build muscle depending on the specific modalities used, and the nature of the exercise will also improve the cardiovascular system. Pete McCall does a great job of explaining the principle of progressive overload in his book Ageless Intensity, when he talks about how the physiological systems of the body need to be challenged to work harder than they are capable of in order to make them function more efficiently. Now, there are two main types of overload. Mechanical overload, which refers to the physical forces applied directly to the protein structures of the muscle fiber. The muscle fibers are damaged when they generate force against external resistance. So this is simply how we build muscle. After the muscle fibers are stressed and damaged, they're repaired through recovery and nutrition. The result is thicker muscle fibers capable of generating even more force than what was previously possible. Now, metabolic overload, which is the other type of overload, refers to a muscle working to the point of fatigue, causing the depletion of all available energy. Exercise to the point of fatigue will deplete glycogen. During the recovery process, the muscles will adapt by storing more glycogen, which in turn causes muscle growth. Now, understanding these two types of overload, imagine performing a bout of exercise at an intensity above your lactate threshold or critical velocity. This is an exercise intensity that is unsustainable. This level of intensity is actually so unsustainable that your brain would eventually force you to lower the intensity. Now, if you use that same high intensity effort and separate it with breaks that include either complete rest or lower levels of active recovery, lactate production would be held more in check. The cardiovascular strain will remain high, but the stress on the body is much more manageable. By performing such high intensity work intermittently instead of continuously, you can maintain the high intensity stimulus for much longer with less strain on the body while still benefiting from the adaptations. Now, the general purpose of HIIT is to stress specific physiological systems so that new levels can be reached. To do that, there are variables to consider. We can consider the intensity of the work, duration of the work, intensity of recovery, whether it's active or passive recovery, duration of the recovery, number of intervals, number of sets, recovery between sets, total volume, exercise modality, environment, and nutritional factors. So during the recovery, you're essentially recharging your battery for the next interval. Now, because of that, the duration and intensity of the recovery interval is crucial. A lower intensity recovery between sets will lower the total volume of the training load. However, the duration of the interval and number of total intervals are key as well. The longer the HIIT session goes on, the more you will require from your aerobic system. At this point, anaerobic systems are taxed without adequate recovery. With most sports, the number of sets or intervals should stay low. We're talking 2 sets of 4-minute bouts separated by longer recovery in between will be much more beneficial than a single 8-minute HIIT session, if that helps explain that a little bit. So speaking of sports, the University of Michigan Director of Strength and Conditioning, Mark Favors, said in High Performance Training for Sports that you play how you train, so you should train how you play. At University of Michigan, he said that they use HIIT extensively because the rest intervals are short enough to ensure that the work demand is great, but long enough to replenish the energy stores so that the intensity of the next effort doesn't suffer. So this is also why when using HIIT for sports performance training, the demands of the sport need to be established. Once those demands of the sport are established, the structure of the HIIT session can then be formed. So regardless of the modality that you're using, and that can be sprinting or swimming or rowing or another form that you might come up with, the specific method that you choose will have implications on how the session will be run and what it looks like. For example, an RPE-based prescription will look much different from a heart rate-based prescription. Now, if you're unfamiliar, RPE stands for rating of perceived exertion. And what it is a scale from 6 to 20, with 6 being no exertion perceived, all the way up to 20 being maximal exertion effort. The great thing about RPE is that it's pretty versatile and can be used virtually anywhere. It doesn't require a heart rate monitor, and it's pretty popular in group exercise environments. Now, with RPE, the individual can self-regulate the exercise intensity based on how the exercise feels. The difficulty is that the workout is based on the effort the individual gives according to the RPE prescribed by the trainer or coach. Limitations of RPE are that it doesn't allow for specific manipulation of the physiological response that you might be looking for. So you are essentially doing the exercise to the degree that you feel correlates with the prescribed level. One person might find an exercise easy, so an RPE of 15 for that person might look different than the same RPE for a person who struggles with that exercise. HIIT is becoming the most popular method because monitoring an individual's heart rate is becoming the most commonly measured physiological marker used to record intensity. This is where a person might wear a heart rate strap around their chest that's connected to their phone, or maybe an app on a TV in the gym that records their heart rate, calories burned, and so on. For some, though, it's difficult to get the heart rate up to the desired zone in a short amount of time, like we're talking like 30 seconds or less, or even up to 2 minutes for some people. And that usually depends on fitness level and, of course, the exercises being used. Now, earlier when I mentioned variables to consider, I mentioned nutrition. We all know that nutrition provides energy that we need to help our bodies move. So in this respect, nutrition plays a big role in how effective HIIT sessions can be. Now, glucose is the primary metabolic fuel used by our cells to give us energy. So while many people who might focus on losing weight, they might try to avoid carbs. The truth is, you won't get as much out of your HIIT session without using carbs as your primary fuel source. Fasted training is one approach some might take, and this happens when we exercise without fueling up beforehand. Now, that could mean exercising shortly after waking up and before breakfast. In this case, you've already fasted for about 8 hours or so, depending on how long you sleep at night. Under fasted conditions, blood glucose and insulin levels drop, and fat oxidation rates will increase to meet the energy demands. While there are conflicting reports on whether caffeine use is good or bad while training, caffeine supplementation shows relatively consistent positive effects on exercise performance. So caffeine taken roughly an hour prior to the session is said to enhance HIIT performance, according to the editors of Science and Application of High Intensity Interval Training. I will say, though, to be cautious when with the type and amount of caffeine that you ingest prior to exercise, and particularly a HIIT session. If caffeine naturally increases your heart rate, you are pairing it with an intense activity specifically designed to increase your heart rate. So definitely, if you have any medical conditions that might affect your heart, probably avoid caffeine right before a HIIT session. Now, nutrition isn't the only factor to consider. Environment also plays a big role in the effectiveness of HIIT. And as far as environment, we're talking temperature and humidity. Those are the primary environmental factors that can change the physiological effects of HIIT. This not only means the temperature in the room or outside, but heat load, which is the sum of heat gain and loss in the body, can be a factor as well. So when you start to work out, when the core temperature rises, the natural tendency is to lower the exercise intensity. This is when the body sweats to help control the body's temperature. Increased body temperature also impacts RPE, which can lower the intensity as well. Now, in order to get the most out of HIIT, the stimulus needs to be progressed each time an adaptation occurs. So many people use high-intensity interval training as a method to become healthier, but there are also potential negative factors that need to be considered. So first, let's define health and fitness in this. Health is defined or described as a state of physical, biochemical, or mental emotional well-being in which all bodily systems function in harmony. Fitness is defined as the quality of human performance and the ability to compete at one's athletic potential. Now, speaking to those, the main physiological benefits of HIIT include improved aerobic oxidative, anaerobic glycolytic, and neuromuscular and cardiovascular function. This is why HIIT can be beneficial for nearly everyone and less specifically discouraged by a doctor because of extreme health conditions. Additional benefits might include bone remodeling and increased bone density, support and function of muscles to help human movement, and hormonal balance, including the regulation of stress hormones, sex hormones, and digestion. Now, there are so many health benefits associated with HIIT, but it's also important to warn of some reasons to be cautious. To complete the total package, consider this equation. Training equals workout plus recovery. And I want to focus on that word recovery. Too much stress on the body with very little recovery can result in excess training stress known as overtraining. HIIT provides an adequate training stress that the body needs to develop various health and fitness benefits, but too much, either in volume or intensity or lack of recovery, can leave the body with too much stress. Now, too much stress can be catabolic, but the right amount of stress is needed for the body to adapt. This type of stress is acute stress and allows the body and brain to adapt to an increased workload. Now, everyone's capacity to respond to stress is going to be different. A healthy response to HIIT will help the body build a healthier immune system, build the body physically, and improve physiologically. Inadequate recovery, though, could lead to health impairments, including injury, illness, and overall reduced performance. So some of the signs of excess stress might include sleep disturbance, poor quality of sleep, pain or excess soreness, fatigue, mood disturbances, change in appetite, and increased or new illness like infections or allergies. Now, as I mentioned earlier, many people might choose to do HIIT to lose weight. There are different reasons, and certainly that could be one of them. When this is the goal, they might also choose to reduce the number of total calories in their diet. But there's a line that needs to be walked and not crossed. If the diet is restricted too much, deficiencies might occur, and being deficient in certain vitamins, minerals, and nutrients can lead to poor hormone, bone, immune, protein synthesis, and cardiovascular function. This is the exact opposite of the benefits I mentioned earlier that HIIT can offer. So definitely keep your nutrition in check. But in relation to dieting and body composition, HIIT can help decrease body fat, but it's not necessarily better than other exercise formats like resistance training. It's simply another modality that you could use. Its main appeal is that I can achieve similar fitness and health benefits in a short duration, and that includes periods of rest. So perhaps it can achieve results similar to other forms of exercise in a shorter amount of time, is why one research study found that exercise enjoyment was much higher during short interval trials than during long bouts of continuous exercise. So regardless of what exercise modality you choose, the important thing is to just move and move consistently. If that means strength training, playing a sport, or doing some form of HIIT, stay active and healthy. But don't forget the pitfalls that can come with overtraining and chronic stress entering your body. While HIIT offers the same or similar benefits that can be gained using other forms of exercise, the primary benefit, like I mentioned, is that it can be done in a relatively short amount of time, so that if exercise isn't your top priority, you can do something great for your body and health and get on with other responsibilities that you might have. If you enjoy HIIT, by all means keep moving forward and progressing with your health. If you aren't a fan or have never tried it, you can find benefit in breaking up your normal strength training routine with a HIIT session mixed in once or twice during the week. So I hope you gained something out of this. For more information on HIIT, you can look into some of the books that I referenced today, like High Performance Training for Sports, Ageless Intensity, and Science and Application of High Intensity Interval Training. Thank you for joining me today, and enjoy your next strength or HIIT session.